Hello, welcome to Church Leadership Lab. Thank you so much for joining us. We are excited for another episode. My name is Scott, half of your hosting people, half of your hosting team. That's probably the best way to say that. And I have Casey, the second half. Hey, Casey.
One time you said the hosting goodness, and now I want that every single time. But people, team, I'll take it.
I feel like that could be one of the t-shirts in our first podcast apparel line that we launch.
Ooh, are we
TBD.
launching a merch line?
TBD,
Cool.
But let's put it on the brainstorm list.
I'm here for it. Thank you.
Yeah, it could just be our faces or like silhouettes or something.
Yeah.
Be like you're hosting.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Season 2.
Yeah. Actually, this is a good episode maybe to talk about that, because we are going to be talking about creativity, leadership, and what that looks like. We are excited today to have Nicole Lucas with us. Nicole is a creative leader and producer, over 12 years of experience leading, managing creative professionals. In that time, she's worked with several emerging leaders to help them develop their leadership skills. And she serves on staff at a church in the western suburbs of Chicago as their creative arts pastor. She's also the founder, CEO of The Creative Level, a leadership coaching and consulting company, and the creator and host of the Coffee and Creative Leadership podcast. Nicole, welcome to the Church Leadership Lab.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
We're excited for the conversation. Hopefully we can maybe talk about some creative t-shirt ideas for our apparel line as well.
I love it. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, one of the things that we like to start off with in our conversations is talking about that thing in your bio. Like we have the public bio, right? We just read that, but there's always something that doesn't quite make that all your friends and family know about. So what would that be for you?
Oh, one thing?
You can do two. We'll allow two.
No, well, for me, I'll say this. I feel like it always comes back to food for me. Like I love food. I love eating good food with good people.
Okay.
So a lot of my friends and my family know that. But if I would pick something, I have an obsession with dark chocolate and fresh raspberries.
Ooh.
That combination together to me is magical. So when I need a sweet treat, my friends, my family, they know, just get her some dark chocolate, get her some raspberries, combine that with a good hot cup of coffee. Perfection.
Forget it.
That's me. Yeah.
I don't know if I've had that combination, but my wife loves dark chocolate. I like dark chocolate too. Not opposed to it. So next time I'm going to grab some raspberries. I'm going to be like, all right, let's see what Nicole's talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
Nicole, we are the same person.
We are
100% same person.
So that's our love language right there.
Yes. The darker, the better. And yes, you nailed it. I'm yes.
Okay.
Hey,
good.
You know what? Let's executive decision. Let's do this. The official snack choice of the Church Leadership Lab. I'd say we call it right now, dark chocolate and raspberries.
That's going in the merch store along with the t-shirts.
Perfect.
I'm done.
Guys, this is like starting out great. Like this is amazing collaboration right now.
I know. Little did you know we'd be making such big decisions just a few minutes into the podcast, huh? Well, we're excited to jump in and talk about both creativity and leadership and what it looks like to lead creatives, and especially how does that impact the church. Obviously, for anyone who listens to our podcast, they know our goal is helping empower healthy churches. And I think by God's grace, creativity has a large part of what a healthy church is and what it looks like. So excited to jump into that. Now, one thing that I know in talking with you about your journey is you've gone from volunteering on a team and kind of years and years ago having that role to now leading that team. And that can be a really interesting journey for people to take. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. It's been a fun one, a long one. It started like almost 15 years ago. It's going to be 15 years in April.
Wow.
That I started that journey where at the church that I'm on staff at right now. And so it started out, I was attending there for about 6 months, and I auditioned for the worship team to play acoustic guitar. Did that a couple times and realized maybe not maybe not for me. And so I got invited into this whole new world of church production, and I got a chance to see all the behind the scenes to that. And it was during that time, probably serving there for about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, that I decided to go back to school for biblical studies and ministry leadership. And I was a creative at heart. I loved music and storytelling and writing and drawing, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. And so by being brought into this church, or coming into this church and being brought into this live production world, I got a chance to see I can do all of it at the same time. I didn't have to pick one or the other, because I literally could not settle. And I felt like it was God's way of saying, I don't want you to pick one. I want you to do all of them. And so I was doing school, and I came on staff where I'm at now for part-time in the communications ministry. I did all of their digital media, social media, website, launched their app, all that stuff. And then a couple years into that, I came on full-time in creative arts. And through a variety of promotions over the course of 8 years, almost 9 years now, they offered me the position of creative arts pastor. And that was a very overwhelming, in a good way, experience. I had to shift gears into becoming, being peers with people, into leading people that I was once peers with. And so that was a shift. But I say all of that because the entire journey, the past 15 years, has been really probably made up of thousands of intentional steps to lead up and to lean into every opportunity that was really given to me. And I had a lot of great mentors along the way that really came alongside of me and helped to accelerate my potential. But that leading up and that leading in was really me being willing and consistent to show up where God opened a door, and where leadership was willing to let me try. And going to school at the same time when I came on staff for leadership, it was amazing to be able to study it and then instantly apply what I was learning. So you've got the mentors, you've got the coaches, you've got opportunities of people investing in me, inviting me in, and then going to school and taking that practical application and literally working it out every single day. And so that's what that journey was about.
Yeah.
And I see it as a privilege. Not a lot of people get a chance to do all of those things at the same time, but I did. So it was a little unique for me.
Yeah.
Amazing opportunity.
What might be something you made a comment about going from being, having peers to then leading those people?
Yeah.
And that's something obviously outside of just, the creative space, like that happens in leadership, where you are, and maybe even people stepping into senior roles as far as a senior pastor or whatever it might be. So what were some things you learned in that process about maybe how to do that well, or how to not do that well, depending on how it went?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I talk with people about this, I admit that I think it's a unique situation in the sense that the team that I've been a part of, that staff has been pretty consistent there. There hasn't been a lot of turnover. And so we've known each other for a long time, and we've gotten the opportunity to build a lot of mutual trust and respect with one another. Mm. And so they've always known who Nikki is. They've never not known who I am. And so when it came time for that shift to happen, where I went from being, just a peer to now leading the team, I think it was made easier because they knew me. They knew my character. They knew how we worked and how I was going to continue to work with them. I remember that moment where the shift happened, and I thought to myself, okay, I need to have a meeting with every single person on my team. There's probably, I think there's like 14 or 15 of them at that time. And I need to kind of say, all right, so maybe this is weird. I don't want it to be weird, but this might be weird. And they didn't think that it was, but I made point to kind of establish, like, I'm still me. You know my character, you know how I am, you know how I've led all these years. And in leadership, honestly, to me, it's like, it's a thing that you do. It's a part of who you are. So you lead regardless of whether or not you're in a leadership position or not. And so people got the opportunity to see that, know that. And so I said, I'm still going to do all of the things that I've done. We're still going to collaborate together. We're still going to tackle these things together. But yeah, now there might be some situations where maybe I've got to break a tie, or I need to make a decision that you guys don't fully understand, but you have to trust who I am and the decisions that I'm making. And then I'm going to do all that I can to make sure that our team is successful in whatever we put our hands to. And so I think it was made easy. It was easier for me because of how long I knew them.
Nice.
I mean, that's just a really solid leadership examples. And you mentioned you had mentors that helped you in that relational equity. I love all of that. Specifically talking about creative folks.
Yeah.
We and I put myself in that category in a little bit. I definitely know Scott is. We are a different breed sometimes and not always the easiest to lead. So taking all of that wonderful wisdom, but talking specifically about leading creative people. Yeah. What are some of the really joyful moments, and vice versa? Maybe what are some challenges about leading a creative team?
Yeah, that's a big question, Casey. We could probably have like an entire episode where we just talk about that.
I think every episode we say, you know what, that's a whole nother episode. And it is.
Yeah.
To summarize it, I love this concept of collective wisdom. And so when I talk about a team of creatives, I'm talking about like this collective creativity and wisdom that each one of them bring to every single collaboration that they put their hands to. And so I could say that for anyone that I've had the privilege of working with or pouring into or leading, but there's something special when you get to, when you see creatives do what they're gifted at. And so to me, when I get to, I get joy. It fills me with joy. I'm joy filled when I get a chance to learn what a creative is good at, who they are, what they do, and then how I can like accelerate or enhance and just clear a way for them to do what they need to do. And so I love to see the level of intensity and intentionality that any kind of creative will bring to anything they do. Like I think of like my guys at front, the guy at front of house, like you dialing in a mix, the video director, the way he's directing cameras, like shepherding volunteers, telling a story, like laying out a story arc. There's a level of intensity and intentionality that it just brings me so much joy to see what they can create. So that's a good thing. They bring everything that they have to everything that they do. And then that is also the challenging thing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I say that because, creatives are deeply connected with their works and work and with their gifting because it's so personal to them. It's almost like it's like a part of who we are, right? What we do is a part of who we are. And so when you as a leader have to critique that or give feedback towards that, that's a very vulnerable thing. It's a very intimate moment when you're critiquing something that's so personal to someone. And yeah, feedback is hard to take regardless. It doesn't matter who it is. It can be hard to take if it's not given in the right way or given at the right time, right? But creatives especially, I think of, I don't know, you think of like a worship pastor, worship leader, right? They're getting critique about the way that they're singing a song, or they're doing an ad lib in the middle of a song, or the way that they did a transition in the middle, or they prayed a certain way. Some leaders will give critique about those things, and that's okay, and that's fine to do. But it's going to sting a little bit because, well, they sing a certain way, and they might feel in that moment that God's calling them to ad lib that way or to say that specific thing. And so when they get critique about it, they're like, well wait, you didn't like the way I did that? Like, you want me to sing that differently? But that's how I sing. That's who I am. And so, I think that's the hard thing, is just the way that they're so connected to what they do. But I also think that that's what makes them great at what they do, is that they're so connected to it.
I don't think I've ever thought about it that way, but as you were saying that, it makes a lot of sense. And the very first thing that God did was create. So, I mean, I think we connect a lot of God's character to creating. And then for people who are artists, creatives, musicians, vocalists, or that production piece, it is kind of a different connection to your talent, to your personality. not just a skill, but a part of literally what makes you you. So I think that's a really good point. When you're providing feedback, it can feel like you are judging me, not my skill, in a way that it might be easier to separate those two if it were a little bit more of an operational or administrative type of a skill. That's not who I am. That's just something I did. When it's creative, that's part of me that I'm putting out there. So separating that, I've never thought about that, but that makes a ton of sense. And I'm thinking about times where I've received feedback and taken it so personally when it was my skill, not me. But man, we took it that way, which kind of leads to, how do we communicate to, and not to say that they're not creative in their own way, but senior pastors, executive pastors, people who are leading creative leaders, how can they help improve those relationship moments so that they can understand how they might need to shift their leadership of people who they are very different from?
Yeah. So I think for me, I try to kind of present this value of, and this is true of all people, but I think especially of creatives, is learning how to lead people according how they need to be led. And that takes a lot of time and intentionality and hard work. And I think the first step to that is clarity, right? Is like taking the time for senior leaders to communicate the why behind the what. So that's mission, that's vision, that's values, that's big picture stuff, but it's also smaller than that. It's also like the day in and day out things that you do as a team or that your team takes on. So it's not uncommon for me to start a meeting by explaining, all right, guys, this is what we're going to do, and this is why it's important, and this is how we're going to do it. And then I invite them into that how. And why is that important? Okay, I'm asking that why question, right? So why is it important? It's important because for creatives, they don't want to know why. And this is me speaking from me as a creative. This is me hearing from my team. They don't want to know why because they want to see if they disagree with you or if they agree with you. It's because it's going to help them inform that vision. And it's going to help them inform the purpose behind what they're doing. And when the frustrations creep up, it's going to help them go back to the purpose and to keep them coming back to the work. And so when leadership can take the time to be clear about the why behind the what, it's going to help all of your teams, but even more so creatives, to really lean in and kind of own it. Not just go about doing this thing, but know why they're doing it. And so for me, that's it. Lack of clarity, people become uncertain and they don't know how to move forward when they don't have the clarity. And so leaders got to take time to do that. Casey, you said it earlier, relational equity is another thing. Like for me, it's we know how equity is supposed to work, right? Like you take your time, your investment, your money, and you put it into something, and then you hope it's going to yield a greater return. Relationships are the same way, right? Your staff is the same way. It's getting to know them on a deeper level other than just what they do, but it's who they are and why it is that they're wired the way that they are, and are even learning how they're wired, And I think of the fact that like, and this is true too, not only just from a leader to like a, direct report, but peer to peer, right? You have to have that relational equity. When people know that you value them more for who they are and not just what they do, I say that it makes the good stuff sweeter and the hard stuff easier. So relational equity with creatives is key. Like you just got to take the time to learn who they are. If not, they're just going to go someplace else. I'm going to say this about creatives, and this is weird. I think I got to say this though for some leaders is like today creatives are like in demand. They're sought out everywhere, right? So if you have creatives on your church staff, that's a very special thing because they are choosing to use the gifts that they've been given in the church, for the local church, for the advancement of the kingdom. They want to be there. They don't have to be there because they can go someplace else where they can get paid more money, right?
Yeah.
Or get to go on a lot of adventures and do things that do a variety of different things, but they're choosing to be inside of a church day in, day out, trying to advance the gospel and creatively communicate the truth about Jesus. And so leaders, you've got to take the time to invest in those relationships, because if not, like, that paycheck is only going to keep them there for a little while until they're able to move on to go find the community and the trust and the investment that they want. They want more than just the paycheck.
Yeah, and again, a lot of our conversation expands outside of just creatives, but anytime you lead or pour into somebody simply because of what you can get from them, or what gifts they have, that's going to not last very long. And that's going to be felt. And obviously we talk about pastoral leadership, like you are leading and shepherding that person. And so I think that's huge to understand that, while creatives bring that thing to the table and can do a lot of things, ultimately knowing and loving them is going to yield much better fruit than, just kind of trying to use their gifts for whatever you need.
Yeah, and you're right, Scott. Like that's true of everybody, right? Like everybody wants to be known on a deeper level. God created us to know him and for us to be known by him, right? Like to know us and to be known.
Yeah.
And so that's what community is all about. And so you want to do purposeful work, you've got to get to know the people behind the processes. So
yeah,
that for me is a whole nother episode. Like actually not just knowing, but understanding why someone has chosen, I'm going to work here. I'm going to show up every single day when I could be anywhere else, even if it's nowhere else. Like I'm choosing to give my time here. So feeling valued and understood. And then a little bit more for creatives than other team members, I think, is that, do I feel stifled? I've got all of this stuff inside of me, and it can't feel like it's on this really short leash. But all of that applies across the board to every position. Do we really understand why people are here, and do they feel fulfilled and valued? That's a whole nother episode for me, but it's really, really good. Really good.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I'd love if we could kind of shift gears and speak to is what are some things that churches can do, especially thinking about churches too that may not have large teams, endless resources. No church has endless resources, but maybe a smaller pool of resources to pull from. What are some simple steps that churches can take to increase that level of creativity, whether that be in gatherings, communication, digital presence, whatever it may be? What can churches do to kind of see that ball move forward a little bit?
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, I think no matter what the size of church is just do your research. Like learn what other people are doing. Like you've got the internet at your fingertips, right? And we're not reinventing the wheel. We're maybe learning how to adapt it to our church setting and our community and our context. But we're not reinventing the wheel. And so I think the best thing we can do is start by doing the research. You can look at what other churches are doing. Of course, obviously do that. But for me, it's also just looking at what other brands are doing, right? Big brands, small brands. Like learn what people are attracted to and what they're not attracted to. And that doesn't mean that you find out what people are attracted to so that you do it. Maybe you want to avoid it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's informing yourself about what's out there and what are the possibilities, and then figuring how to adapt it for your context and your scale. That would be the first thing. And I think that's what we always try to do. Hey, hop on Pinterest, right? Mood boards. That's a big thing these days. You've got an event coming up. You've got a series coming up, like a sermon series, something like that coming up. Pull up Pinterest, figure out what you want that vibe to look like. Figure out like what's up and coming right now. What's going to attract the people that are going to see it. They're going to see it. They're going to hear something, and it's going to draw them in. And so for me, that's kind of where we start. That's where my team and I start. We do our research. And then the other thing is we bring in a variety of people, different ages and stages of life. And we see I guess you kind of say it's like a survey of sorts. We want to know what people like and what they don't like. And so it kind of goes again with the research. But then once you get that information, you can't be afraid to do something different with it. And that means being okay with maybe a little being uncomfortable, doing something that you're not used to.
Yeah.
And then assessing whether or not, hey, do we like this? Do we want to try it again? Do we not like it? And so it's just a process of trying, being willing to step out, try something different, and to know that it's okay to have it not work out, but you'll never know if you don't try. So research, and then not being afraid to try something different. We do that every day. And I would say too, like, we try to do it. I'll say specifically for the church that we're at, we'll try to do it in a season that we're not so busy. That's when we kind of try to take on some of those new initiatives and do some experimenting, because we actually have the margin to like say, okay, what do we want to do and how do we want to do it and how are we going to evaluate it and who's going to do what. It's just easier when we've got more margin. And so, yeah, do your research. Don't be afraid to try something different.
Yeah. I love to speaking to that. You talked about kind of getting a team together and thinking through where's the diversity on this team, like, so different ages, backgrounds, ethnicities, I mean, everything. And I think what's cool about that is, like, especially when you do that, like one of the things we do at my church is as we kind of have bigger picture creative planning, making sure that room is a diverse room. Because I kind of get the mental picture of like a river. Like if you do something, like if you can bring that to the source of the river, like where everything's starting, then you can kind of see that take fruition as your plans, just in everything you're doing, versus sort of like trying to tack it on at the end. So yeah, that was something that really just stuck out to me in what you said. And I think something we, not all churches, but some probably could use the encouragement, to do that and to see that happen.
Yeah. And then too, it doesn't mean that it has to be staff. Like it's, your key volunteers, people who are invested in your church and invested in your mission, just say, hey, we've got this thing going on and we want to invite you in. We want to invite you to give us your perspective and your opinion on it and see how you can help us move this forward.
Yeah.
People want to be a part of it, like people want to be a part of what you're doing. And so if you can give them an opportunity, a space to do that, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Nicole, one question we love to ask everybody who's on our show, again, our goal is empowering healthy churches. So one of the questions that we ask to hear the perspective of whoever we're talking to is, in your opinion, what is one essential component of a healthy church?
One. Ooh.
Yes. We have to do one for this one. We could do two for the first one with the bio, but this one will be one.
Okay. I would say it comes back to me to developing your people. It's about your people again. So developing them spiritually and technically. If a church can create a consistent way to invest in making healthy disciples of Jesus who are always leveling up what they're doing so that they can continue to move that mission forward, I truly believe that kind of a culture the culture of that kind of a church is going to thrive, and you're always going to have people who are developed and ready to step into the next thing that God's calling them to. And that be it that staff, be that a congregation. And so, and I think with that, healthy staff will lead to a healthy and thriving church and congregation for kingdom impact. So, to me, it starts with the people.
That's good. It's really good. All right, let's do this. Let's jump into our final five. That's where we get a little rapid fire on some of these questions. So we have these five for you. The first one is this. Again, sticking to the one only theme. What's one book that you'd recommend to church leaders?
The book that I would recommend is it's called Making of a Manager by Julie Zhu.
Okay.
It's spelled Zhou. It is not. It's. I guess you would say it's a secular book. I think she was one of the leading founders of Facebook.
Okay.
But the reason why I love it is because it is so practical. Out of all of the leadership books that I've read, whether I was in school, a ton of them are tactical. A ton of them are very philosophical. But I want the practical. I want the stuff that's easy to digest and easy to teach. And I want to hand the book to somebody and have them literally go through it and not even a week. And that's what this book does. So it's a book that I've found that I go back to. It's a field guide that just literally lays out leadership, lays out how to manage a team from start to finish. And the people that I've recommended it to have said, man, I've never read anything like this before. So hand clap to Julie Zhu for writing such a great book. But
it's awesome.
I think Scott can see my smirk. Like, we truly are the same person, because I think he knows more than anyone else. I'm all about the practical and tactical, and I always sneak that in. Like, I love that we're having this concept, but how? Like, literally, yes. How? Where is the playbook? Where is step one? We are the same person. We're going to have our own private episode. Like, just tell me everything. Speaking my love language.
I think that's true, because like a lot of times when people go to a book, they go to a resource, they go to a podcast because they want to get into how to do it.
Teach me. Don't talk about it. Teach me. That's why I'm listening. So yes, thank you. Yeah. Speaking of listening, Nicole, one answer. What is the last thing or most recent thing that you listened to? Music, Spotify, whatever.
Okay, so on Spotify, the last thing I listened to was a podcast called Hidden Brain. I heard about this recently. I came across an article. It was an article about psychology, and a bunch of Stanford professors were recommending podcasts on psychology. And so it's a fantastic podcast that blends science and storytelling to help us understand patterns in human behavior. And so for me, it's fascinating because that was one of the emphasis of my leadership degree, was psychology, understanding people and how to lead people according to just, patterns and human behavior and all that stuff, and really kind of digging into it. And so for me, this podcast was fun because it kind of it gave me an audible thing to listen to help kind of broaden my perspective of the psychology. And then I get to kind of do the work of figuring how to create a bridge into the relational and the spiritual and the biblical side of it. So that podcast is fun. Go check it out.
Nice.
Hidden Brain. Got it.
Hidden Brain. Yeah. Favorite
piece of technology?
Oh, other than my phone? A phone is such a generic idea. My AirPods. I feel like I can't go anywhere without these. I think the AirPods made me lazy because I hate holding my phone up to my ear now. It's
just such a chore now.
Yeah.
How dare I hold this up to my ear? Ew. Yeah.
So whether you want to say they made me lazy or they spoiled me, but I cannot stand holding my phone up to my ear anymore. So I can't go anywhere without my AirPods.
I feel that.
I relate to that. Yeah. What about a quote or advice that stuck with you over the years?
I don't know if this is a piece of advice that I was given, or maybe it was just something that I've come to realize over the years. It has to do with something that my mom said to me one time. She said, Nikki, you were never okay with normal. You always wanted to scale mountains. And I think in other words, it meant like I always wanted to do big things. I always wanted to do something bigger. And so I've come to realize that that's true, but I realized that, and she has always helped me realize that God is the one that has helped me accomplish those bigger things. And so she always brings me back and reminds me of that. And so whether there were small things or big, scary, intimidating things, that mindset of showing up, doing the right thing, walking through the door that God opens up and trusting that he's going to show me what's next. That's just always how I've lived. And I think I go back to her when I think about that. I was never okay with normal. I always wanted to see what God had next for me. That was big. So that's it.
It's good.
Normal's overrated. I think your mom's onto something. All right, Nicole, this has been really, really good. So the last question that we want to ask you is what we ask everyone to leave with. What is one thing that you would love to communicate to this audience, specifically of church leaders?
For me, I think I would want to say to leaders, I know I want to say to leaders that you're doing a good job. I don't think that they hear that enough. I think a lot of leaders feel like they've got to keep pressing and pushing and doing the next thing. And you do, but you also need to take the time to recognize when you're doing well. And people need to hear that from time to time. And so I want to say that to leaders, you're doing a good job. Keep doing good work and keep trusting that God's going to lead you to what's next. And then I think on top of that is I would want to encourage leaders, just like I'm preaching to the choir. This is me too, is to keep intentionally developing your influence with your people, whatever your circle of influence is. Build that with people, develop emerging leaders, invite them to the table. I know how important that is because I was the emerging leader, and that's, I think if there's anything that we can do for the next generation is to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves. We're leading with emotional intelligence. We're being self-aware and we're managing ourselves well. And we're being aware of others and what they need and how we can manage them well, and passing those skills on and leading with emotional intelligence consistently is going to help the next generation of leaders know how to do that much more, because they're the up and coming. They're what's going to be leading the future of the church and the future of our organizations across the world. And so know that you're doing a good job, and know that you've got a lot more people to influence. And so just keep figuring out how you can build yourself up so you can build others up.
It's awesome. Well, Nicole, this has been an awesome conversation. I know that it's been really good to hear you dive a little bit deeper into everything we've covered: creativity, leadership, those coming together. But what's been great is just how it really goes beyond that, and I think is really helpful when it comes to leading in the church and really leading in general. So I'd love if you could just let our audience know what's the best way to connect with you, keep up with what you're doing, find out more about the Creative Level, like give all the deets, as the kids say, so that everyone can connect with you.
You're saying kids say as if we're not kids, Scott.
Well,
yourself, old man.
Yeah, I don't know if the kids say the deets. They probably don't, but that's okay.
No, thank you for that. I'd love to share. So the Creative Level, that's my coaching and consulting company, one-on-one leadership, development, coaching and consulting, team building, creativity, all that stuff. You can find that at thecreativelevel.com. Very simple, thecreativelevel.com. I'm on LinkedIn a lot, so you can find me there. If you go to thecreativelevel.com, you'll find all of the social media buttons. You can just literally click them and go there. But yeah, you can find me there. On Instagram, I'm at Nicole Lucas Creative, but I'm mostly I'm on Instagram, but I'm a LinkedIn girl, so Find me there. And yeah, I want to connect with people. I want to be there to be I want to be there to be a resource, and I want to be there to help you guys grow. So if you want to hit me up, then we'll hook up.
Nice.
and we'll talk about leadership. So
that's awesome. Well, I'd encourage everybody to do that and to dive deeper into both the resources that Nicole's creating, but also her coaching, consulting, and I think you'll be blessed by that. Thank you to everyone tuning in here, whether you're listening, watching, we appreciate it. We hope that this is helpful. Again, our goal is to empower healthy churches, and so we hope this conversation has done that. We'd love if you subscribed, liked, left a review, shared it with anyone that you might want to, and hopefully it can bless another person. So thanks so much for your time, and we'll see you next time.
This episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast is brought to you by Ministry Brands, the largest provider of church technology software. Over 90,000 churches rely on Ministry Brands for their single platform solution that brings together all the digital tools a church needs. From online giving to websites to church management software and more, Ministry Brands is leading the way in simple to use, innovative solutions, all with the goal of empowering healthy churches. To learn more, visit ministrybrands.com.